Before the episode begins, just a quick message from Lucy Tomlinson from Welcome Pilates.
Merry Christmas, Brian, and to all the listeners of your podcast. I hope you've had a wonderful 2024. Looking ahead to the new year, if you are thinking about starting Pilates, wanting a little bit of assistance or guidance in your fitness journey, then do come and check us out. We're Welcome Pilates in Twickenham, and we would love to help you start your journey or continue your journey depending on your Pilates experience. We've got a team of amazing teachers, and your first class is free. So do come and check us out. We're welcomepilates.com, or drop us an email, hello@welcomepilates.com, and we'd be happy to invite you to a free taster class. You can also gift a month's membership to a loved one. Maybe you already know someone who comes to our classes, and if you'd like to gift them the joy of movement, then feel free to get in touch and we can do the rest. Look forward to seeing and moving with you in 2025.
So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name is Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. Welcome to Brian's Run Pod. So hey there, runners and aspiring runners, and welcome to another episode of Brian's Run Pod, where we talk about all things running, the joys and struggles and everything in between. And I'm your host, Brian Patterson, and today I've got a truly inspiring guest on the show all the way from Australia with the wonders of technology. So she is someone who's flipped the script on how we think about running, and it's not just about chasing PBs or hitting the perfect pace. Nope, Andrea Doney from runwithaslowcoach.com is all about embracing the beauty of just showing up, getting out there and finding joy in the run, even when you're not a huge fan of running itself, which sometimes I'm not. Anyway, Andrea's built an incredible community for those who aren't trying to crush every race, but just want to feel good about moving our bodies, finding moments of peace, and maybe having a laugh along the way. She has just recently come back from running the New York Marathon, and no doubt we'll get into that later. Plus, she's an award-winning business owner. So lace up, get comfy, because this conversation is one you won't want to miss. So welcome, Andrea, to the podcast.
Hi. And
Thought you might enjoy
that's so
that.
cool. Thank you. And hi, it's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. I know this is the second run because it kind of didn't work out, whatever, but I'm really looking forward to having this conversation, because I think a lot of things that you say on your website do resonate with me, because I'm a 62-year-old older runner who I'm not doing as much as I used to do, but still want to enjoy running. I mean, is that something that you find with some of the clients that you have? And
Absolutely. Some of them do come to me because they want to enjoy running.
yeah,
Others have a very diverse set of reasons, which might just be, not happy with the states of their bodies or the states of their minds, or
yeah.
wanting to sign up for a charity race or
Mm.
make their kids proud. There's a lot of reasons, but certainly that's one of them.
Yeah. I thought I'd like to start sort of right at the beginning from how you began this journey into running. What's your story?
Sure. I think, if I'm probably the most surprised out of all your listeners to find me sitting here tonight talking to you, in that I have never really been a runner. I've never really been sporty. I've never been athletic. I've never been interested in this kind of level of endurance or kinetic activity.
Yeah.
I was very academic at school. I was into things like ballet and choir and reading, and never. In fact, I used to pretend to be sick to get out of the school athletics carnivals and things like that. So mine is not a story of sort of lifelong commitment to the sport of running.
Yeah.
And I came to it in part through trauma and in part through accident when I was about 40 years old, which is about 13, 14 years ago. And it was one of those things that sort of, as I'm sure many of us have been through, life throws you a few things that you didn't see coming. In my case, it was a series of unfortunate events in no particular order. My husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer at a very young age. He was only 40 years old.
Right.
Fortunately, he's fine now. But in quick succession, I had 2 other friends diagnosed with various forms of cancer, and they both unfortunately passed away.
Right.
My husband and I went through a period of infertility, which was related to his cancer, which meant we had to do about 10 IVF cycles.
All right.
Many of which were unsuccessful or ended in miscarriage. So, it was a period of great loss and grief and trauma, and also immense financial burden in all of that.
Yeah.
And then I did get pregnant and very nearly lost our very precious little baby boy through a very preterm labor. He was born very early, so he had a very sort of tenuous start to life. So in amongst all of that, we immigrated, we moved from South Africa to Sydney, and then from Sydney to Perth.
Yeah.
So I guess all of those things compounded over time. And when I did finally draw my breath, I found that I just kind of lost touch with myself. I was anxious. I was frustrated. My mental health wasn't in a great place. And I guess I was riddled with grief. But also somewhere in all of that was this kind of moment of clarity where I realized that so much of that journey to that point had been kind of a messy one of illness and loss. And I was kind of, angry with the world, and I felt a bit like a victim.
Yes.
And somehow in all of that, just fortunately, this moment of clarity arrived in which I realized that I was grieving 2 beautiful friends who I'd lost and had come through this journey of illness, but I was taking my health for granted. So I realized that the one thing that I had, which my 2 girlfriends didn't, was that in that moment in time, I had a healthy body. And I was wasting it. I was taking it for granted. I was spending all day lying on the couch and, eating Doritos and watching daytime TV and feeling sorry for myself. And I don't know why, but that just triggered the idea, well, perhaps I should go for a run.
Yeah.
That might have been rooted in the fact that my husband has always been a very talented runner.
Okay.
It may also have had something to do with the fact that running at that point in time didn't cost very much. I could just put on a pair of shoes and go out the door. We didn't have very much money. So, it was a low barrier of entry, and I felt like I had nothing to lose. I would just go and move, and perhaps at the end of it, give myself a day or a chapter or something where I didn't take my health for granted, and I had sort of taken this healthy body and tested it and used it and made a bit of a memory with it. And at least then one day I could say, well, at least I did that. At least I made myself proud. And that first run turned into several runs. And
what was those early days like for running? Because I know some people, they would either go out the door and then maybe do the 3K and then, this is it. It's not for me. I'll do yoga instead or something like that.
Well, look, there was no ways it was 3Ks. I was coming off a very low base.
Oh, right.
So I downloaded that Couch to 5K app, and I think from memory it was a 12-week program or something.
That's right,
but I know that it took me exactly double that length of time to do it, because I had to repeat each week because I simply wasn't making the progress that the app thought I should be making. So it started with the sort of walk-run intervals, and that gradually the runs got longer and the walks got shorter. But it was a very slow process, like everything I do, and not a particularly elegant one. But I do know that when I did finally complete that 5K, and, as I said, it took me a couple of attempts, but when I finally got there, it was perhaps one of the proudest moments that I've ever had, where I thought, well, actually, I did something hard and I've proven to myself that I've got that ability, and maybe things are not quite so bad.
What were you feeling inside and also from, mentally when you were going through that process? Were there any things?
I think the overwhelming feeling from that chapter of my life was anxiety. So I worried about everything. I just, there wasn't anything in the day that didn't scare the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
And I would kind of catastrophize. So having, lost friends and having nearly lost my son, and and lots of other things. I just felt like I was constantly gasping. So it was that sort of feeling of anxiety too. But then, of course, interspersed with all of that was also there were just a lot of critics that mostly lived in my head, who would very loudly kind of chant at me that, you're too fat and you're too slow and you look ridiculous and who do you think you are? And everyone's laughing at you. You shouldn't be doing this. And so there was all of that narrative that was just very, very loud. But fortunately, I was able to realize quite quickly that the process of running was one of the best ways I'd ever discovered to quiet those voices. So it very quickly became a tool to kind of untangle the mess in my head and kind of calm things down a bit. And then I realized that it was a fantastic avenue for me to just cope better with the rest of my life. So I was a calmer mum and I was a better employee and I was a better partner and the house was a bit more organized. And so I discovered that I was able to show up as a better person because of the running, because of the activity.
And I always find sometimes my anxiety sort of plays out while I'm sleeping. I don't know what it is, but I always wake up at the same time and then suddenly there's a multitude of things going inside my head. I worry about this, that, and it could be very small things and they suddenly kind of illuminate into your head sort of thing. And like you said, I think, exercise, and I don't know if you found it, that they doing exercise and being active and keeping fit helps with the sleep, Do you find the same thing? Yeah.
Helps a lot with sleep, for sure. It helps with everything. And I think it also just helps create a slightly different narrative that even if the things that are waking you up at night, are real, there's still that kind of other side of you now that is just somehow more capable and more prepared and more confident and more able to cope, to be able to face it. So when you do get up out of bed, that thing, I don't know, you've just got a little bit more armor as you go and face it and stare it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got on that so-called running treadmill, as it were, and then you've kind of taken off, got more confident, feeling a lot better about yourself and whatever. So what was that leap to taking it a little bit more seriously, so to speak?
Let's take a quick break.
Hi, just a quick break to say a big thank you to you for listening to Brian's Run Pod. We are fast approaching the holiday season and the new year, and I hope 2024 was kind to you and that you will reach your fitness and life goals in 2025. I also wanted to say a very big thank you to all my guests. There are too many to mention. I started this podcast journey back in January 2023 last year, thinking it would only last 3 months. Now 100 episodes gone and I'm still hungry to provide you with more riveting content for 2025. Best wishes for you. And now back to the podcast. But before that, now a word from a couple of our past guests.
Hi, Brian and Brian's Run Pod listeners. I'm Merrily, author of Just Run. Just Run is the perfect gift for every runner or anyone thinking about starting running in 2025. In my book, I share my journey from barely hitting 3,000 steps a day to becoming an ultra runner in just a few years. A few months ago, I completed my first 100-mile race. Just Run is packed with practical tips for beginner runners. Running is for everyone. You don't have to be fast to go far. You just need to run your own way. That's what Just Run is all about. You can grab your copy on Amazon, including on Kindle Unlimited, or get a signed copy from my website, merrilyruns.co.uk. Feel free to reach out to me on my website or through my socials at merrilyruns. Looking forward to connecting and wishing you all a wonderful Christmas and many happy miles in 2025. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Andrea, popping up from Sydney, Australia to say hello and to thank Brian for creating a forum which is so beneficial for those of us who are seeking a richer experience of running. If you're like me, you probably run for a host of reasons. These might include time alone, mental health, personal accomplishments, or maybe reclaiming a sense of self, possibly for the first time in a long time. And you might have noticed that the narrative around running is also changing. Until recent years, you probably mostly heard it talked about through the lens of metrics. Things like getting faster, getting stronger, getting thinner, getting better, getting a spot on the podium. But thanks to voices like Brian's, more and more we're starting to think about running as a means to becoming a better person, to enjoying the morning, to achieving a fundraising goal, or maybe just making yourself proud. And if that sounds like you and you're interested in getting some coaching support for whatever your running journey looks like, I invite you to take a look at Run with the Slow Coach. I host a global coaching community for older, slower, bigger, injured, and back-of-the-pack runners. I'm fully accredited through Athletics Australia. I'm endorsed by the Australian Trail and Ultra Runners Association. And in 2023, I won a local business award for the most outstanding fitness service. I coach online, and I promise to keep you accountable because I know what it takes to start a running journey, especially if you're not talented or you haven't been active your whole life. And I believe that runners like us deserve all the science, all the rigor, all the empathy, and especially all the support to safely progress to whatever your finish line looks like. And I'm really here for that. So find out more by following me on socials at Run with the Slow Coach or visit runwiththeslowcoach.com. I really am passionate about the life-changing benefits of being active, and I'm grateful to Brian for everything he does in this space. And now, back to you. Thanks so much. I think it was just, initially in terms of the running progress, it was just this kind of being able to track my progress along my own personal ruler. So going from, 2 to 5Ks, from 5 to 10 and so on. And that wasn't a straight linear kind of iteration. There were lots of pitfalls and setbacks and starting all over again. So initially anyway, it was to do with my progress as a runner and how good I felt in that I was, instead of being in this kind of churning mess of my own making, I was progressing. I was taking steps forward, and I really liked that feeling. But then, of course, out of that, really sort of, as the distances grew longer, so did the need for some actual science and some support and some insights into what I was doing. So,
all right. So you're getting curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But did you find, how often were you running at the time? Were you doing like a couple of times a week or 2 or 3 times or?
I can't remember exactly, but it would have been probably about twice a week during the week. And then, the weekend longer run, which sometimes involved taking one of my children in a pram or pushing him on a bicycle and occasionally running with a friend. But yes, those weekend runs kind of got a bit longer,
right?
When I could find the time. It wasn't always when you've got a young family. So it wasn't a perfect recipe. There wasn't a perfect pattern to it.
So how long did it take from when you sort of started, this running journey to thinking, well, maybe, I should maybe investigate, coaching running or doing some kind of formal qualifications, because I know, you are, is it level 3?
Yes.
So obviously you had to start at, level 1 and or whatever. So how long did that take?
So I think it was about 11 or 12 years approximately between starting running and starting to think about becoming a coach.
Oh, right.
So I spent a lot of time just as a runner and as a very slow runner and inverted commas, a very bad runner, always back of the pack, always kind of coming last. And on one of my many runs, so I started running in my very late 30s. I think I might have been about 40 years old. And I think I was probably about 51 or maybe 52. I'm not too clear on the timelines, but that's when I kind of, again, was on a run one day, and I had started with a group but been left very far behind, and as often happened. But that's never really bothered me. I was quite happy to run at the back and, I just kind of had one of those thoughts. I was running along the road and I thought, well, I can't keep up with them and they have no interest in running with me, and that's fine. But there is still a point at which, I may be running slowly, but I still would like to know whether I'm doing it well, whether I'm doing it safely, whether I'm doing it with the right kind of progressive load or the right kind of nutrition. I would actually quite like some rigor and some science and also some empathy that said that my kind of running, which has nothing to do with really pace, but was to do with mental health and time alone.
Yes.
The sheer pleasantry of being, moving in the sunrise kind of thing. Where is the coach for people like me? I had this thought that I really need a coach, but I need a slow coach.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, that's a good name because I have a marketing background.
Okay.
So anyway, long story short, I couldn't find the coach that I needed. And then, as the saying goes, well, if you can't find it, then perhaps you need to become it.
Yeah.
And so, of course, there was a whole journey in that too, and finally the confidence to sign up and walk into that room for that first kind of classroom environment to do the first of my coaching accreditation. When everyone else in the room, looks like a runner.
Yeah.
Thin and fit and toned and confident and wearing T-shirts with the names of expensive overseas races, and they just kind of look like they know what they're doing, whereas I felt like such a fraud.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was part of
imposter syndrome.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
But, kind of finding enough courage to say, well, I just want to give this a go. And then very quickly discovering how much support I was receiving from those thin, fit, beautiful people in the room who kind of said, we're so glad you're here. Running needs people like you.
Oh,
and,
great.
Yeah, it was a really great moment. And there's been many of them, and it's kind of grown from there.
All right. So just going on that course, I mean, is it something that's, is it kind of, how long does it take? Is it like a couple of months and then, you
no.
have to do?
Well, here in Australia, through Athletics Australia, we could do the level 1 course, which from memory was, I think it was 1 day in a classroom and then a fairly comprehensive assignment that you had to do. Plus, you kind of had to complete these online modules. So there was quite a few videos you had to watch and something.
Yeah.
But in all, it probably was just a couple of days. And then I did level 2 and ultimately level 3 in sort of performance coaching. And that was a bit more intensive. So I think that was 2 days in the classroom for the performance coaching part. And then I did a sort of another 2 days intensive in coaching trail and ultra runners. Right. And again, each of those 2 days also came with assignments and modules. And so, maybe a couple of weeks all in. But then we are required to kind of maintain that through various modules and things online, and also some strength and conditioning coaching and other forms of professional development.
I know a million years ago, when I did the YMCA, did you have to find people to do the coaching with, and did that sort of a practical modules or?
Yes, we did. And certainly for the level 1 coaching, I think we needed to have 8 hours of coaching experience, which I didn't have.
Right.
So that's actually when I went to market initially, and I just put a note in my local community Facebook group. I said,
right.
I'm looking to coach anybody who wants to learn this sort of, as a beginner runner, and I will coach you for free in exchange for this experience. And fortunately, I got a wonderful response from the community, and a lot of women and a couple of men signed up. And I did more than 8 hours in the end.
Yeah.
So it gave me the experience and the confidence that I needed and got me through the course. And then once I felt qualified and confident enough, I started charging for the coaching. But in fact, a lot of my clients today were in that early free group.
That must have been really encouraging, because you must have thought, well, A, I'm not the only one, and B, I feel that I can help people. And
yes,
like
absolutely,
like you said, I think there's no better coach than than going to someone who's kind of been along the same journey as yourself. So
absolutely, for
you
sure.
can really
And
identify.
look, people sign up for coaching for many reasons, as we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
But weirdly, it's often not got a lot to do with running. It's got a little bit to do with running, of course. But my clients will often be coming because they're looking for an outlet to, improve physical health or mental health, or just get out of the house for a couple of hours, or be able to take part in the company fun run without looking like a fool. And then they have a lot of emotional needs around that running. So certainly there's a physical component, and I don't mean to make light of that. But honestly, most of the work we do is on mindset and confidence and learning to back yourself and, learning to treasure those runs and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, not just physical.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were going through that coaching process, just to go back on that, did you feel that you had this kind of thirst for knowledge, and you were just finding out so much more about the sport itself, like you talked about, strength and conditioning, how that's important, injury prevention and the different types of running and whatever. Was it kind of like I don't know, Pandora's box of loads of things coming out at you, but you were just just taking it all in?
It was enormous. I mean, I very much wanted to know how to support the runners like me safely and scientifically. But I would often feel that I would be like pulling at a string, and then this whole thing would unravel. So you kind of go in with the question of like, why does my ankle hurt? And then suddenly you discover that you need to know the physiology of the leg. And it's not just the leg, because it's never just the ankle, but it's also the whole muscle chain up the leg and the glutes, and what are they all called? And then what kind of exercises should you be doing and what shouldn't you be doing? And what's the nutrition to support that? And what's the research? And it just kind of keeps coming. And then, of course, it's all bound up in very impressive sounding jargon and acronyms. And you just don't know. You keep like frantically Googling or watching YouTube video after YouTube video. But I've always found it really, really fascinating. I've always been curious, and I've always been academic. So it was just wonderful just to be able to keep learning and to find all these tools that ultimately you can reinvest in supporting people who just want to be present and validated and supported safely to whatever their finish line is.
So do you think you went down the sort of rather than the performance route, the sort of the physiological biomechanics of running that interested you more?
Yes, I did. But I did it too because I found that the majority of the running conversation and the coaching conversation was around supporting performance athletes, but the assumption is that those performance athletes are the ones at the front of the pack, the ones on the podium.
Yeah.
So all the kind of narrative was around how to get the best out of your athlete, and it's just assumed that best means faster, stronger, better, higher, thinner.
Yeah.
And that's all very, very true. I don't mean to take anything away from that, but in my experience, performance for me was simply, how do I run a half marathon without making my iliotibial band hurt?
Yeah.
And what is the performance that is required in my body, which is older and bigger and doesn't come with that kind of base fitness or the innate talent or those kind of kinetic fluidities that you see in the front of them. So where is the science that says, what do I need to do? What do I need to eat? What kind of exercises do I need to do? And what kind of progress can I follow that will mean that my performance is also, a good one, but in quite a different realm. So I was interested in that. And also I think part of me wanted to challenge the educators or the people that were sitting the coaching syllabuses.
Yeah.
Peak performance doesn't always have to be about winning.
No. Of course, yeah. I mean, I think probably most runners, it's about, your self-evaluation, and you're trying to perform against yourself. That I think more than anything. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So, when did you start your running community? So, you obviously felt that there is, you've gone through the different stages of, being qualified. No doubt you thought then, there's a market for it here. So, when did you really take that seriously?
I think I started coaching in about October of 2021.
So right. Okay. So just sort of, latter stages of COVID, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. That was, part of the many challenges.
Yeah.
But it's all been quite recent. So I've really only been coaching for a shade longer than 3 years, I think.
Right. And then how are those, how did you, approach that and get, start sort of taking up or sort of getting the running community up and running?
Well, I think, as I said, initially it was because I offered to coach for free.
Oh, right.
So I was able to bring in the sort of 20 or 25 or so people who were, eager to get that kind of experience. And together we completed, I think, an 8 or 10 week program that got everyone to running about 2 kilometers for the first time in their lives. But I think alongside all of that is that I'm fortunate in that I have a marketing background. So I was quite good at promoting myself, and having something like a name like the Slow Coach, it's very clear to the market who should be considering my services. So yes, so I had this sort of quite a large base of clients initially, but then once I started charging, that dropped down quite dramatically, and then kind of had to rebuild a little bit more slowly, but that's fine. That was always the intention. And so I started coaching in person here where I live in north of Sydney. I started coaching 2 mornings a week, and I built up to having between sort of 5 and 10 people in each of those groups. And then over time, I also started coaching online as well. And that's kind of been able to draw in clients from a bit further afield. So all over Australia and New Zealand, and at various points in.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're doing online as well?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Brilliant. Oh, excellent.
And I do have a client in Canada, and I have had clients in the States and Switzerland.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yes.
That's amazing.
It ebbs and flows a little, but I do have online clients all over the world.
Well, as is normal with most of my interviews, I split it into 2 parts. I'm sure you'll have enjoyed listening to Andrea's journey into running. Andrea's narrative is one of courage and creativity, navigating the path from Sydney to an international stage. Her marketing acumen played a crucial role in building a brand that resonated with those who might otherwise shy away from competitive athletics. The second part of our interview is no less exciting, which will be next week, as she describes what it was like coaching people from the other side of the world, also her infectious description of running the New York Marathon. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye-bye. And that's a wrap for another exhilarating episode of Brian's Run Pod. Thanks for tuning in, folks. As always, we've got you back with all things running, and next week, get ready for some more awesome beginner hints and tips to kickstart your running journey. Don't forget, you can now send me a message. Yep, you heard it right. Brian's Run Pod has now become interactive with the audience. If you look at the top of the episode description, tap on Send Us a Text Message. You can now tell me what you think of the episode, or alternatively, what you would like covered. If you're lucky, I might even read them out on the podcast. Hey, if you want to keep up with all the latest updates, behind the scenes fun, and even some exclusive content, make sure to follow me on social media. We've also launched a shiny new Facebook page. Just simply search for Brian's Run Pod and give us a like. And don't forget to hop over to Instagram, where you can catch all our visual adventures at Brian's Run Pod. For those of you who love diving deep into the episodes, head over to our website, www.briansrunpod.co.uk, and there you'll find some detailed show notes and handy chapter markers, making it easy to navigate through your favourite discussions. Please leave a review, as it will help others find this podcast. Music is by Happy Day by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson, and also thank you to my producer, Anna Patterson. So till next week, thanks again for listening.